Welcome back, everyone, to Random's Thoughts. We have another Runestrike Ruminations coming at you today, and the topic for this particular discussion is Conjure. So recently there was a somewhat extended discussion over in the official Runestrike Discord about this particular keyword / mechanic. The general idea boils down to this. Should the power level of this effect be constrained further or broadened and increased? The too long didn't watch for this, for my opinion, it should be both. Now, before I explain, let's talk a little bit about Conjure. What is it exactly? Well, Conjure is a keyword that means what you can see on screen. Choose one of 3 runes and add it to your hand. It seems simple enough, but there's a lot of layers of complexity to this and how it gets handled. In fact, there's a somewhat backwards relationship that may not immediately be evident when you first consider this particular keyword. So basically, when you have the opportunity to conjure something, you'll be presented with 3 cards, and you select one and add it to your hand. There might be constraints on what's available, such as the cost, the realm, the minion type, or, yet to be seen options. There's anything. The keyword is a staggeringly wide array of options. It could be anything. It could even be a boat. But therein lies the challenge. Is that you hypothetically can pull things outside of your starting realm combination, meaning that if you start as Nature Shadow, you could, as seen on screen, easily pull an Ifrit. It doesn't necessarily have to be from your initial combination. So that means that you can hit the proverbial nuts, or, of course, you could hit the less desirable end of that particular stick. I mean, you look at these demons on screen, and they could all come from a single nightmare play. Here's the key point. That's not inherently bad, though. Now, realistically, and this is especially true on an elongated timeline when there are more cards in the pool, but it's also true now, that you're going to hit things that are generally fine. Now, you're going to have to forgive the brief math lesson here, but ultimately, this is just a bell curve distribution. Now, barring the developers at Making Fun just absolutely throwing caution to the wind, and even beyond that, throwing it into a raging tornado, odds are that they're generally going to have things that cost X or feature specific attributes that the Conjure happens to be keying off of. Do something within a defined range. Sure, you could end up comboing something such as Sever the Source that you got off Naval Explorer in your Emrys build to somehow make your 6-drop into something brutally savage like a 5-drop. The point being that you'll occasionally hit something incredible. You'll occasionally hit something awful. But in general, you're more likely to land somewhere in the middle, as the cards you're getting from out of faction are, well, generally likely to have less synergy than your starting cards. And of course, anything that could have been one of your starting cards but isn't, didn't make the cut for a reason. Most often, you're going to conjure things that are, as stated earlier, and as you can see on the screen, simply fine. Now, as someone that actively loathes variance, randomness, luck, or however you want to refer to it, I'm strangely okay with Conjure as a whole. Given that each Conjure card is somewhat constrained, just in general, it feels okay to me. Variance is an important part of games to ensure, well, varied gameplay, as redundant as that may sound. There are very few people that deep down really want to play identical games with the identical cards and the identical matchups and the identical play patterns over and over and over again. As much as many people want to convince themselves of that, it often is not the case. Introducing these sort of effects, such as Conjure, with what we'll call controlled random, allows for fun scenarios. Naturally, the fun is always bound by the rules of luck, and as a result, sometimes the fun isn't quite so fun for one or both players. It's the chance you take with playing these sort of effects. Now, should something be done about these cards? Well, to rephrase the earlier point, yes and no. Currently, these cards, to me at least, are acceptable. They're also inherently self-correcting. If it's absolutely broken to hit card X, some small percentage of the time, right this second, well, guess what? When the next set of cards releases, it will be inherently harder to find that specific, oh my god, broken combination, because just simply more cards are in the pool. The denominator has grown. By the same token, if the range of cards offered is currently bad, it'll improve as more good cards are added to the pool. As mentioned, self-correcting. Realistically, the only part of this that really matters is the thick part of the aforementioned bell curve. The edge cases are, well, by definition, exactly that, edge cases. The high rolls and the low rolls are just less common than the generally mediocre / acceptable options. Now, of course, if the bell is somehow inverted, then it's a problem, as you just have coin flippy scenarios happening a lot. But that necessitates a whole lot of things going kind of catastrophically wrong, the stars aligning or whatever idiom of choice you happen to have, and a number of mistakes being made consecutively by the design team, and I don't think that we can anticipate that that's going to be a reality. Overall, both more restrictive Conjure is possible as well as more open Conjure. The question isn't really whether one or the other should be applied everywhere across the board. The question really is which specific cards and scenarios should be looked at, if any of them should be looked at all. I'd encourage anyone that feels the changes need to be made to really look at which specific Conjure cards they aren't happy with. Then look at the range of cards that can be conjured by that original card. Now consider how many fall into the bad, decent, amazing spectrum for outcomes we're talking about. Of course, some are going to be contingent on the board state, but that only kind of underscores the narrow nature of some of these situations and the rare nature of some of these situations. Keep in mind that if you can reduce the band of cards that are available to a given Conjure card, you aren't necessarily nerfing it, because you're making it more consistent. And consistency is power, especially in the context of cards that are inherently random, on top of the normal randomness involved in card games. Realistically, narrowing the band could be a buff, because you're shifting the available tools that it can retrieve and allows a strong player to really plan around the specific scenarios, as opposed to just, well, I could get this huge swath of somewhat okay cards and maybe hit the nuts or fall short. Now you're shrinking that so that's much more controlled. And having that control is very important when you're playing these sort of games. Basically, in the end, it all comes back to the denominator and how it shapes the bell curve, just kind of like everything else. Be careful what you wish for. So in closing, I hope this has been informative. I want to try and do more of these shorter discussions that are more focused on specific topics in the future. If you have any that you'd like to see featured for me to talk about, feel free to comment below and let me know. If you agree or disagree about my thoughts about Conjure, also let me know. The community discussion is always important. But that'll do it for this time, though. As always, everybody, thank you for listening, thank you for watching, and Black Lives Matter.